Hey Ottawa, this is your Monday Market Snapshot for the Ottawa Real Estate Market for Monday, November 11th, 2024. Today is Remembrance Day, so please, if you're able, attend a ceremony or take a moment to pause. My name is Annalie Rice. I'm a realtor here in Ottawa, Ontario, and every week I bring you the details of what's going on in the Ottawa real estate market. This week I will include the Ottawa Real Estate Board stats, which came out this past week, as well as the stats that are released from my brokerage. I did want to point out that there may be some disruptions or some differences in how I present the data in the weeks and potentially months moving forward. Our whole board, as well as a lot of Ontario, is moving to a different MLS system, and the switch over from one system to the other is happening in the next couple of weeks, and then I have to decide whether or not I'm going to stick with one type of program versus another one. But as a whole, our board and all of our members are having to change how we do a lot of stuff, and I'm not sure exactly how it's going to affect how I pull and gather the data and if I'm going to have to change things up. So for now, it's still all the same as it typically was, but I may have to adjust things going forward. And so I ask with your patience in the time ahead as I have to figure out how it's all going to work. Okay, let's get to the update this week. First, let's look what happened citywide. We've got kind of a mix. We've got a drop in the active listings, but it was all in the detached and townhome market. You can see that was actually a jump in the condo market for the active listings this week. And it's kind of the opposite situation with the sales. We had just one less than we had last week, which is a great week for sales. But the detached and town sales were up, and the condo sales were down quite significantly, which I guess balanced each other out. Okay, this is our visual inventory breakdown. You can see the active inventory in the green line, and you can see the little horizontal line that I've got in there. Actually, there's two there, but they're basically overlapped, showing you that this year our active inventory is essentially the same as it was the same time last year. The difference, though, is the fact that the sales, the firm sales in red and the conditional sales in orange, are much higher this year than they were last year. You can see that either visually with the lines at the bottom, or you can see based on the difference of the gap between the black line and the green line, what the difference there is. So you can see the gap right now this year is quite wide. We've had a lot more sales and conditionally sold properties versus last year. Those gaps are a lot smaller. So you can see that we continue to have fairly strong sales, while last year it was definitely sales were dropping off at this time of year. This chart shows us our new listing breakdown. So this week we had 324 properties come to the market. 111 of those, or 34%, were relisted properties. That's the gray line at the bottom. And 213, or 66%, were new to the market listings. That's the light blue. And you can see the sales in there as well. Of note, I would point out that for this week at least, our sales, firm sales, that's the red line, was higher than the number of new listings. So I do expect with these drops in new listings that our sales are going to have to drop off as well. The sales are going to slow down. So it's not very often, if you look back through the chart, how many times you actually have the sales cross the new listings line, and it's not very common. Happened like last December, January, which is just because there were a number of sales and just no listings coming out. But otherwise, it typically only happens in a bit of a hotter market early in the spring, when the sales are picking up quickly and there's just not enough inventory on the market. So it's kind of interesting that our sales did cross the active or the new listing inventory. Okay, so looking at sales, we had 232 sales this past week. 18% of those sold with no conditions, and 25% sold at or above asking price. Both of those were a bit of a jump up in percentages from last week or the last few weeks. I don't know if it's going to remain a trend. I don't think it per se is. I think as the sales slow down with the newer listings down, I don't think it's going to stay so high, but we'll see. Sales within the first 7 days, there were 17 properties, and it was 7% of the sales. 71% of those sold with no conditions, and 76% sold at or above asking price. For sales within the first 30 days, it was 43% of sales, 99 properties, 17% of those with no conditions, and 43% at or above asking price. And I think this is the first time I've seen, and I had to double check that I wasn't making a mistake, but the first time I've seen where the percent of places selling with no conditions for the first 30 days was actually lower than the overall average, because normally it's just slightly higher than that. It was really kind of weird. So a number of places that had been on the market for longer than 30 days must have sold with no conditions. It's just kind of rare. Okay, so this week we had 59 homes sell for at or above asking price. 41 of them, which was 69%, sold at asking or up to 1% above asking price. 14 homes, or 22%, sold between 1 and 5% over asking. And then the remainder 5 or 8% sold more than 5% above asking. The highest over was the same property for dollar value and percentage. It was 16% over, or $78,000. It was originally a 60s bungalow on quite a large lot, but it did have a 2-story addition. So it was a 5-bed, 2-bath. It was just off Merivale in the Nepean, and it was an estate sale home, needed a fair amount of work. It was listed at $500,000 and it sold for $578,000. And of the 5 properties that were selling for more than 5% of their asking, 3 were set with offer dates and time. Next, let's look at what happened in the different areas of the city. Okay, so first in the central urban region, we have a drop in the active inventory for detached in towns. Condos saw a jump of 10 active inventory. Sales were a little bit mixed. Detached were up by 13, quite a large jump, 34 sales. Townhomes just down 1, and condos were down by 15 sales this past week. In Canada and Stittsville, we had a drop in the active inventory for detached and towns, and a jump of 4 up to 43 condos for sale in Canada and Stittsville. Sales were just down slightly for detached, but up for towns and condos this week. Okay, in Barrhaven and Riverside South, we have a drop in the active inventory across property types, but most notably in the townhome market, down to 68 active townhomes on the market there. Sales were a little bit mixed. We had a drop in the detached and condos, but a jump in the townhome sales this week, up to 14 sales. And finally, in Orleans, we have an increase in the number of detached homes on the market, up to 138, but a drop in townhomes and condos. The sales were a bit mixed, a slight decrease for detached and condos, but a jump up to 17 sales in Orleans for townhomes this past week. Okay, so this is the full data for the residential detached homes across the city. And the full data for townhomes. And finally, for the condo market. As I mentioned, I've got the Ottawa Real Estate Board stats as well as the stats that are released from my brokerage, and I'll share them now. Okay, so these are the stats from my brokerage for the Ottawa real estate area. And I will point out that these numbers are different than what I share, because my numbers that I share weekly and on a monthly basis are just the City of Ottawa boundaries. These are more broad. That's why you're seeing a higher number of sales. But so you can see the vast and huge difference in the number of sales. We had 51% increase from October of 2023 for residential, and then 25.8% increase of number of sales for condos. Average sale price up slightly for the residential and down slightly for condominiums. This is the year to date, so all the way up to the end of October, comparing to 2023. So you can see that overall our sales are up by nearly 11% for residential, 4.2% for condos, overall 9.2%, and average sales price up slightly on both residential and condos, just the slightest bit up from last year, year to date. Okay, the next 2 slides are the Ottawa Real Estate Board stats, which are taken from the Canadian Real Estate Association. These are a little bit more broad. Their areas of how many sales, like the area that they use is mostly the city boundaries plus some outlying villages and like more towns. But the numbers do match up pretty closely. So you've got a 9.4% increase from October 2023, down just shy of 4% from the 5-year average, and down just shy of 1% from the 10-year average. And those do fairly match with what I had in my charts from last week, where you can see that the certain years, 2020, 2021, had such high sales in October that it skewed the 5 and the 10-year average. But our number of sales in October of 2024 were well above many of the years in the past 10 years. For the benchmark prices is a different category of a different way of calculating the average price. Composite is all homes. Average is up 0.4 year on year. Single family homes up 0.7 year on year. Row townhomes, which does include condo row homes, up 1.6, and then apartments are down 3.4. And this is the Ottawa Real Estate Board graphic, sort of summary page that you see a lot of people share. Just has just a few snapshots of those different data points. It's because of these sort of consolidated things that I decided to do these weekly updates, because I feel like you can't just have a once a month little screenshot of numbers and understand what it means. And that's why I do these weekly updates. Okay, so that's my update for this week. If you have any questions or comments, please do get in touch. And if you enjoyed the update, please do give it a thumbs up. And I hope you have a fantastic week.